Hey, happy weekend, everyone. Josh's severe weather. Do you ever feel like you just blend in with the colors around you? Anyway, we've got some major weather to discuss here, and I know you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, good, another YouTuber talking about major weather. There's only 1,000 of them. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, for many of you guys, this could be the upcoming week could be one of your snowiest of the whole winter. That may not be saying a lot, though, for some folks in the South. But we are going to roll right on into it. So if you could like this video and comment if you have any questions about it or share with your friends. And obviously, if you want to get more updates from me, I recommend that you subscribe to the video. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and let's go ahead and get right to it here. And major storm next week. We actually have a couple of storms to talk about, but the second one is the one that I'm going to be focusing a lot of this video on because it's going to impact people from the southern Rockies through the plains right on into the Northeast. Here's our low pressure track that's expected here early next week, coming out of northern Mexico across Texas. And those of you in Texas could really use some rainfall. You're going to get some out of this storm. As it tracks into the Mississippi River Valley, we now see an increase in moisture transport out of the Gulf and severe weather likely to be an issue as we head into the day on Wednesday. Then that storm track continues up and cuts into the Great Lakes, meaning we cut off the chance for snow in the big cities of the Northeast, and then reforms right at the coast and moves up into New England, where there'll be a supply of cold air and likely heavy snow across northern and central New England. But the big cities where a lot of you are watching me from, Boston, Philadelphia, New York City, DC, Baltimore, Richmond, Raleigh, Charlotte, unfortunately, this track does not favor snow for you. And you're probably thinking, well, are we ever going to get any snow? And I will have some answers to that, but not from this storm. I do think as we get farther on into the future, into the month of February, the chances for snow certainly are not going to be zero. So that's what I'll be zeroing in on later. But let's focus on the issue at hand, and that is going to be this major disruptive storm that's going to produce heavy, wet snow across parts of Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, northern Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine, as well as the threat for severe weather, including tornadoes in Louisiana and Mississippi, Alabama, Northwest Florida, Georgia, possibly even into the Midlands and coastal plain of the Carolinas by the middle of next week. So let's take a look at the upper level pattern. This is from weatherbell.com, and this is the 500 millibar chart. So basically about 20,000 feet above the ground, we take a look at the wind flow, and you all can see that we've got a storm departing New England here. This is at the start of the weekend. Next storm system is tracking across the high plains of Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico, and that is producing some wintry weather here in the central high plains this weekend. Now, that storm will pick up some Gulf of Mexico moisture and some faster wind flow aloft, and by Sunday we'll be drawing in heavier amounts of rain over the Gulf Coast region, as well as the potential for maybe some isolated severe weather. Now, this storm I don't think is going to be as potent as the one behind it, but it will cause some heavy rain and possibly even the threat for some washouts here and localized flooding across the Gulf, the eastern Gulf states, and heading up into the Carolinas on Sunday and Sunday night. And the farther north you get, the colder that rain falls. So if I had a line between warm rain and cold rain, since we're not talking rain snow this winter, apparently, it would be right across the Piedmont region here of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Southeast Virginia. Okay, so that storm is going to produce some snowfall here across the interior of the Northeast. I'll show you those maps in a second. But the next storm, as you guys can see, is a lot more potent. It's got faster winds aloft with it, and it's taking a farther southwest track, even west of the Four Corners region and right across Arizona. We're going to have some mountain snow in Arizona, and that is actually going to pull in some strong winds aloft from the Pacific and from the Gulf. And where those meet, we've got strong forcing, and we've got the potential for some heavier storms in places like Austin and Round Rock, San Antonio, maybe Del Rio, and then especially the Houston area and the Piney Woods region of Texas on Tuesday. There could be some severe weather as well out of this, and I would not be shocked if there were a tornado or two somewhere here, maybe in southeastern Texas, Tuesday afternoon. However, Dixie Alley, as we call it, is likely to have some strong winds aloft on Wednesday morning. And the big question mark right now, as we've seen with the last couple of storms, is will there be enough instability and daytime heating for there to be supercell storms? And the answer to the question right now cannot be answered. I think it's possible. However, this does not look like, at this point anyway, a repeat of what we saw a week and a half ago across central Alabama and Georgia. The reasoning for that is that the upper level flow is strengthening, but already beginning to lift away to the north and east of you during the morning on Wednesday. However, we continue to see a ribbon of strong winds aloft carrying that moisture across from Texas all the way into the mid-Atlantic region. This is where the mild air is getting pushed northeastward into the big cities of the Northeast and keeping us from getting snow. And as this trough gradually lifts eastward and out on Friday, colder air replaces it across the Great Lakes region and especially the upper Midwest. And we finally feel more like winter. Not that it hasn't felt like winter, but you guys know what I mean. It's going to be cold, and we're going to be definitely needing to run the heat here across a good chunk of the central and eastern United States behind this storm system at the end of next week. Next weekend, it does turn milder again, and once again, that chilly air mass gets replaced by a quick warming trend next weekend. But we've got another lobe of cold coming down from central Canada, and certainly looks like it's going to be a tug of war here over the southern United States and the eastern United States again before the next wave of cold hits us here in early February. So again, we just cannot get into a persistent pattern of cold weather like we saw right before Christmas or even close to that across the eastern and central parts of the U.S. But some very interesting volatile sorry, I'm inventing words for you guys, volatile weather here with this active storm track over the southern and eastern United States. So major weather nonetheless. It's going to be disruptive. It's going to cause some problems, I expect. Here's the surface chart. The European from weatherbell.com shows you all storm number 1 tracks across Oklahoma. Heavy snowfalls today and tonight across Colorado, Kansas, northern Missouri, but staying mainly north of Kansas City. There'll be some lighter snow. And we could see some snow here late tonight, tomorrow morning around the Chicagoland area, Detroit, Columbus, Ohio. But the intensity doesn't really pick up until we get into interior parts of Pennsylvania, New York State, and eventually New England. There will be the potential for some ice at the front end of this system across the central and southern Appalachians and the foothills. Excuse me, and that would be mostly Sunday morning in the southern Appalachians and Sunday afternoon and early evening in the interior parts of the Northeast, but primarily a cold rain falling here across the mid-Atlantic region, maybe some heavier thunderstorms here later on tomorrow, and starting in the morning around Louisiana and Mobile and Northwest Florida, and then tracking eastward into Georgia tomorrow afternoon and early evening, and then moving off the coast with our cold front here late tomorrow night. And by Monday morning, we could have a few scattered storms across central and south Florida. I would say early in the day in central Florida, later in the day in south Florida, but the threat for severe weather does not look to be high. We will have a little bit of snow here across Middle Tennessee, East Tennessee, and Kentucky. Probably not much that would stick to the ground. That would come early in the day on Monday, maybe carrying into the afternoon in places like Beach Mountain and in the Smoky Mountains on Monday. Not a big snow, nothing like what we saw at the beginning of last weekend, but still it will be nice to see. But not a big snow either for southern New England or Long Island or New York City, maybe just a touch of snow here. Next storm system, that's what I'm watching here. This is late in the day on Monday. We see heavy mountain snow across the southwest, New Mexico and Arizona, and this one is going to cut farther south, and we get to see more significant snow over eastern New Mexico Monday night. Excuse me, and early on Tuesday morning across northwest Texas. And we see rain in places that haven't seen a drop of rain in over a month over central parts of Texas and getting into the hill country of Bernie and north of San Antonio, and then spreading east into the Dallas area, I-35, and getting into the I-45 corridor. And we could have some heavy amounts of rain here and some stronger storms, depending on where the surface low develops. Now, temperatures are going to stay above freezing in North Texas. However, we're going to have a strong enough upper level low to allow what's falling to very quickly freeze up. So upper atmospheric snow falling will not get a chance to melt even with temperatures above freezing. So a very big amount of wet snow will likely fall here in northwest Texas and central and southern Oklahoma, despite the fact that surface temperatures are very marginal for this event. So what'll happen is a lot of this snow may fall and fail to stick to the ground for a while, but I do think it will all fall and cause some problems on the I-35 corridor here between Oklahoma City and maybe Denton, Texas. And then that snow at night will be building up quickly across parts of central and northern Arkansas and into the Ozarks region. And we see a very well-defined low pressure system here late Tuesday night that is producing strong thunderstorms with very heavy rain in northwest Mississippi, and then 100 miles off to the north and west, heavy wet snow. So a very strong gradient here with this intensifying low pressure system tracking up the Mississippi Valley and into Tennessee. By the way, it will be cold enough for snow across middle Kentucky, western Kentucky before a change over to rain. And we could see a situation where it's snowing in Louisville late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, and then thunderstorming by midday on Wednesday before a change back to possibly some wet snow. Right now, the storm track favors that the heaviest snow is going to be primarily the Interstate 70 corridor on southward. Chicago could see snow, Gary could see snow, Detroit could see snow, but not a big snow. A couple days ago, we saw that a band of heavier snow may track over northern Illinois, northwest Indiana, and lower Michigan, southern lower Michigan. But right now, the low pressure track is just a bit farther off to the south and east, meaning it's going to be a close call in Cook County, Illinois, a close call here in northwest, like Lake County, Indiana, where the heaviest snow ends up just off to your south and east. There could be snow Wednesday morning, don't get me wrong, but I think the bigger amounts will be over central and southern Illinois, maybe St. Louis, Indianapolis, and south, as well as Columbus, Ohio. By the way, in the Northeast, New York City, Philadelphia, Wednesday, midday and afternoon, we could see a period of snow, which for some of you may be our first accumulating snow the entire winter. However, with low pressure going up into the eastern Great Lakes and a secondary low forming Wednesday evening over the Carolinas and off the coast of the Delmarva, we see a change over to rain. So primarily, this is going to be a rainfall for the northeastern cities, the big cities, I-95, but it does look like it could start out as a bit of wet snow, maybe even a few inches stick. The heavier amounts of snow and maybe sleet mixed in will be over central New England, and very heavy snow likely across parts of Maine and southern Quebec and southeastern Ontario as well, as we've seen about 50 times so far this winter. Okay, maybe it's only been 5 times, but it feels like 50. So yeah, some very, very interesting weather where Buffalo has had well over 90 inches of snow this winter, but you go south into western Pennsylvania by just 100 miles, and some of you haven't even seen a foot yet. So pretty crazy stuff. Behind this, we'll see cold air flooding in from the northern parts of the United States, coming straight out of Canada. It'll be below average weather, sub 10 to 20 degree below zero readings on Friday morning. But with a lot of cloud cover, it's probably not going to be as cold as, or even close to as cold as it was before Christmas time. And we will see instability snow showers, mountain snow showers here as well as we head into Thursday and Friday. But Middle Tennessee, Eastern Kentucky, while it can snow, I don't think we're talking anything major. However, with the cold air that follows this big storm, do be prepared for roads to get slushy and icy and for some tough travel here in the higher elevations on Friday morning. So that's a lot for you guys here. I do want to show you temperatures, and you guys can see how this weather evolves. Cold in the southwest, a lot of snow in the mountains. We start to see that cold spreading eastward here early next week behind our storm system, storm number 1 that is, but then it warms right back up across Texas, and you can see the cold here is just fleeting, with maybe some bigger cold building into the country here, into the western half of the country here on Tuesday night and Wednesday. Below average temperatures then spread east and are going to cut underneath this milder air that's in place over the Great Lakes and the Northeast. It's not mild air, it's typically cold this time of the year, but it is above average. So this is with respect to average, and as we head on into the end of the week and over the weekend, you can see there is definitely Arctic air lurking, and that is going to eventually invade the northern Rockies and Plains in gradual amounts here at the end of this week and especially next week. But it is going to encounter the resistance, and that is the mild air in place across the Gulf and eastern states that has been with us here since right after Christmas, and really right before the big outbreak we had before Christmas. Other than that maybe 5-day stretch of brutal cold, it's been very warm with respect to average. And you guys can see across the country here a very well-defined dividing line here. This is the next Sunday between well above average weather in the east and the southern plains, and much colder weather across western Canada, invading the northern plains and Rockies. And this is going to be the battle that we have to watch over and over again at the end of this month and for the good majority of February. And it's going to be one that's going to make us lose our hair and make us go nuts, because we are going to see models continue to struggle with where that line ends up, where we see the snow, where we see the rain, if there's severe weather. But nonetheless, we are definitely in for extremes as we head into the very end of January and into the start of February. And those extremes will keep us here in business, here in the weather business, but they're also going to cause a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth. Let's just put it that way. All right, so I'm going to show you guys some snowfall maps here, and I will caution you that this shows a 10-to-1 snow ratio, assuming that for every inch of liquid, we have 10 inches of snow. That will probably not be the case everywhere, but this is what I'll show you. So this is the national blend of models. This is storm number 1 here, moving through the central part of the country. And other than some heavy snow in eastern Colorado, western Kansas, this will start to become a lighter snow event as it moves across the east. The next storm is the one I'm focusing on because it's got a lot more support for very heavy snow here across New Mexico, northwestern Texas, western and central Oklahoma, and then expanding across the Ohio River Valley, starting in St. Louis and then going across Ohio. And this has the potential to produce some pretty heavy snow. This is a blend of every single model that we have. And notice that the trend has been pretty well entrenched here, including Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri. But this is a blend of every single model. I don't think this is going to be what we end up with total. Here's the total snow, by the way. And you guys can see this is Storm 1 plus Storm 2. But amounts could total up to well over 6 inches across northwest Texas, eastern New Mexico, southwestern Kansas. Then it jumps a little bit when we get to eastern Oklahoma, and then picks up again across the Ozarks and across the middle of Illinois, Indiana, and into northwestern Ohio. I will show you the east now. This is the national blend of models, and we see from Storm 1 some light to maybe a little bit moderate snow here, picking up by the time we get to the interior Northeast Sunday night into Monday, and that will wrap up by Tuesday morning. Storm number 2 comes up here across the central part of the country on Tuesday night and especially on Wednesday, and we could see some significant amounts of snow starting Wednesday afternoon and evening across the interior parts of Pennsylvania and New York, and then spreading into New England. And we're looking at a total snowfall in excess of a foot in some parts of the mountains of New England, and 6 to 12 inches everywhere else from New York and northern Pennsylvania over into Maine and New Brunswick. So a very disruptive storm, nothing you guys can't handle here, but areas of the southern plains and the Ohio River Valley have really yet to see any kind of significant snow. And I think this is going to be your first chance this winter to see a significant snowfall. This is a blend of every model. It's not the actual forecast. So as we look at the European here, we see storm number 1 here building up over New England on Monday, storm number 2 coming into West Texas late Monday night and Tuesday morning, and then tracking across Oklahoma Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night especially, then into the Mississippi Valley Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. By the way, some snow here before it changed to rain in places like Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky Wednesday morning. And then we see Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday night, a large area of the country is plastered in accumulating snow. However, here in the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic region, again, it's really no snow to talk about, with the exception maybe of the northern suburbs of Philadelphia. The northwest suburbs of Baltimore, New York City, and Boston are right on the line here between accumulating snow and just some wet flakes going over to rain. But yeah, definitely a significant storm, and we've got more to talk about behind it in the northern parts of the US and the Midwest here by next weekend. Here's a zoom of the European across Oklahoma and Texas. This is Storm 1, not going to affect you guys much. Storm 2, though, on the other hand, will be. And you guys can see the Europeans got the heaviest snow in places like Wichita Falls and Lawton, Oklahoma, then expanding on into northwest Arkansas. This is for Oklahoma, basically the southern plains. The GFS model, here's the zoomed out view. You guys can see big snow here across the interior of the Northeast on Monday and Monday night. Next big storm looks like it's more significant from New Mexico straight across Arkansas into Illinois and right on up into Indiana, basically cutting just north and west of where our low pressure goes and right on into New England. So big snow Monday night and Tuesday down south. Wednesday in the middle part of the country, Wednesday night, Thursday into the northeast, and then colder air coming in behind it. And we could have more potential snow next week in parts of the Great Lakes region. Here's the zoomed in view for Kansas and Oklahoma and North Texas. Big snowfall here from the GFS this early part of the weekend. Then we get a bit of a break. The Ozarks are going to get a little snow, by the way. But our bigger snow here starts going in the Red River Valley Tuesday night, and the potential for more than a foot of snow in Oklahoma City. Will it all stick to the ground? No, but a lot of that will fall. You guys can see the snow depth change is 4 inches. So a chance to see 4 inches of snow on the ground in Oklahoma City, even though a lot more will probably fall and melt initially. And then that expands on into the north and east. I'm going to move this on to the east so you guys can see in Illinois. And let me go back to snowfall here so you guys can see the potential from the GFS for 3 to 6 inches of snow right on between Chicago and Peoria and Champaign. South of that region, the potential for a foot of snow to fall, and that would be primarily late Tuesday night, Wednesday, and Wednesday night, and then expanding eastward. I'll show you Ohio so you can see that. And really, this is going to be the haves and have-nots again. As we get to southern Ohio, it's probably going to be less, but Covington and Cincinnati, we're looking at the potential for 4 to 8 inches of snow accumulating. Same goes for the interior here of West Virginia and Western Maryland. Let me take this up into New York State so you guys can see that if the GFS is right, we are going to see our first accumulating snow in New York City. Perhaps an inch accumulates Wednesday afternoon, although the heavier amounts, again, are going to remain north and west of you for Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, and Thursday morning. So quite a bit to talk about. Let's look at the severe weather real quick. We have Storm 1 producing heavy rain and storms on the central Gulf Coast today and especially tonight. And a marginal risk for severe weather expands eastward with our first system into South Georgia, North Florida, and into South Carolina. We get a bit of a break, and then Texas may see some heavier storms later on Monday night into Tuesday morning. As we get on into day 4, that would be Tuesday, we do have from the Storm Prediction Center a 15% chance of severe weather. I think this area might need to be expanded farther to the west and a little bit farther north. And as we get on into the day on Wednesday, the predictability is too low. However, I do think there will still be a chance for some severe weather here across the southeastern United States, maybe all the way up into southeastern Virginia. Here's why. This is the European 850 millibar, and you guys can see with our next storm here coming in all the way down into Texas, we have a lot of upper level support, a lot of wind strength aloft with 60 to 70 knot winds at 850 millibars. That's about 5 to 8,000 feet above the ground, and a strong low-level jet right out of the south here in Louisiana late in the day on Tuesday, and then Tuesday night into Mississippi and Alabama. If there's enough instability, we could see a few rotating storms out of this and maybe a few tornadoes Tuesday night. In particular, I think in southern Mississippi, southeast Louisiana, and the southern half of Alabama, and getting into northwest Florida. And then during the day Wednesday, with some heating, we could continue to see at least a squall line with a few rotating storms in it getting into Georgia and spreading into the Carolinas Wednesday afternoon. That will finally move out of the region Wednesday evening with a straight line wind threat, perhaps in the eastern Carolinas early in the evening on Wednesday, before things should quiet down after that. And I'll show you the amount of available moisture. It picks up pretty quickly here Tuesday afternoon and evening with dew points in the 60s. Out ahead of it, though, we have a pretty clear defined boundary where the air is not moist enough to support severe weather. There will be some heavy rain, but where this 60-degree dew point line goes could indicate where the threat for tornadoes ends up growing. And the National Blend of Models does keep that south of central Alabama at this time, but does expand it into the Savannah River Valley during the day Wednesday and up into the Carolinas Wednesday afternoon, getting kind of marginal by the time we get up into southeastern Virginia at 7 or 8 o'clock here Wednesday before drier, colder air follows in behind it. The total precipitation is going to be pretty high here on the central Gulf states here over the weekend. We could see 1 to 2 inches of rain falling in some places. But the bigger slug of rain is going to be following behind it, and a bigger area will get hit with some heavy rain, and that could push totals above 4 to 5 inches over parts of the Florida Florida Panhandle, maybe southern Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi, and possibly up the southeast coast. 2 to 3 inches of rain will be possible all the way up to OBX, North Carolina. Lightning flash density, not a lot, but there will be quite a bit of lightning tonight, tomorrow morning in the central Gulf states. The next storm will produce quite a few more thunderstorms in Texas and especially southeastern Texas into Louisiana Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday night. And then as we spread eastward or move this eastward, whoops, Europeans doing some funny things on me here on Weather Bell, but all right, let's get back into Wednesday. You can see much of South Louisiana is going to have a stormy night Tuesday night, South Mississippi and Alabama late at night, Northwest Florida by daybreak Wednesday, and then Wednesday afternoon, we see quite a bit more in the way of thunderstorms than we did with this past storm this past Thursday, and a lot of lightning, maybe some strong winds and hail coming from these storms here during the day on Wednesday before things start to fizzle Wednesday night over the Outer Banks. All right, folks, a lot more I could talk about, but I don't want this video to ramble on too much longer. I appreciate y'all's time. No video tomorrow. I'll have some updates for you, though, if there's any severe weather down south and any heavy snow. But if you could like this video, add any comments you have, and subscribe if you could, I would really appreciate that. I am running a fundraiser through St. Baldrick's through March 18th. The beard will be gone that weekend. It's the first weekend of March Madness. That is to raise money for childhood cancer research through the St. Baldrick's Foundation. I'm not going to shave my head this time, but it will be trimmed short like it is now. But the beard will be gone as we head into spring. So I really would appreciate it if you could donate. I'll have a link here on my video so that you can see that. But I really appreciate y'all's time and want to thank God and give him all the glory for giving me the opportunity to be called to be a meteorologist and to share this important weather information with you. And I want to share a quick verse with you if you're still watching. And that verse comes from the book of John 3:15 through 21, that everyone who believes may have eternal life in him, the Son of Man. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him, Jesus Christ. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but people loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what they have done has done in the sight of God. And I will tell you all that as a Christian believer, as a Christian man, and I wasn't that way for 30 years, I've taken the hard road, not the easy way out. That is the road that leaves me to be condemned, because a lot of folks do not believe in God and Jesus Christ. They believe there is no God, that things have just randomly happened and they will continue to happen that way, that people who do love God are haters, are very narrow-minded, that they're the ones spreading evil and taking away choices of others. But these are people that are doing God's will. And unfortunately, across the world, we are seeing the percentage of people who are believers continue to dwindle down, people turning away from God as the younger generations come up. And it is difficult for God to see this. And that is why evil is occurring, because people who are doing the will of God are now being outnumbered by people who are doing evil deeds or worldly deeds. And I am not the person to judge you. So if you're listening to me and you're like, what in the world are you talking about, Josh? Listen, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not judging you. Not at all. But I feel like I've been called by God to continue to spread his word and to help people hold on to faith and hope that one day when that time comes and your time on earth is gone, that standing up for what you believe in, for those of you that are Christians, standing up for Christ, he will then stand up for you. He will give you the grace and remove all sin and give you eternal life. And I want to share that with you because I have to remind myself this every day, that no matter how much I slip up, no matter how many people do things that I don't believe would be necessarily the path to take, including most of my family who are not believers, that somebody's got to stand out in and provide the light for others and open the door, much like that was open to me when I committed myself to Christ on Easter Sunday of 2013, coming up on 10 years here. So I wanted to share that with you all because it's important. And while the weather is important, while it's, provided a good career for me, it's not all going to matter in the end. What's going to matter in the end is what happens eternally, and that is being saved due to the grace and the gift of God through his son, Jesus Christ, who was crucified for you and me to live. So I really appreciate y'all's time today. I hope you have a blessed weekend. If you have any prayer requests, I'm happy to pray for you. And if you could pray for me as well, I would very much appreciate that. Thank you all. We love you, and we'll talk to you soon.